Don't buy an existing nursery business until you've watched this video. I'm going to tell you everything you need to know. I've helped many people achieve their dream of opening their own nursery, and the process isn't as difficult or as time consuming as many people believe. Despite this, some people just want the ease of being able to purchase an existing nursery. So in this video, we'll go over how to purchase an existing nursery business and the main things you need to consider. But first, welcome to the channel. Welcome to the channel Open Nursery with myself, Kurt Diania, where I teach you to open, run and grow your own childcare business. If you're new here and you're not aware of what I do, I've opened a few nurseries myself and I've supported numerous others to achieve their dream of opening their own nursery too, some of which now own multiple nurseries as well. So you've come to the best place if you're considering opening your own nursery. In the UK, children's nurseries are a flourishing business sector that provides vital early years education to children. As a private business, nurseries can generate significant profit. If you intend to buy a nursery, you'll need to ensure you do the right research before you commit to the purchase. Not only should you understand the childcare industry as a whole, you need to demonstrate a capacity for responsible ownership. And in most cases, because purchasing an existing nursery can be very expensive, you will likely need to secure a business loan in order to help fund the transaction. In this video, we'll firstly go over the things that you need to do before purchasing a building, starting with the first thing, which is consider your costs. You need to consider not only the cost of purchasing the business, but also the day-to-day running costs too, like staff salaries, rent and utilities, as well as factor in the cost of repaying any loans that you may have got. Once you consider all the costs and work this out properly, you should then look into the location of the proposed property. Nurseries are heavily reliant on local communities. The majority of your parents will come from the local area. Therefore, you need to know your area well. Consider that if you're in an area with lots of competing nurseries, it may be more difficult to attract new clients. However, competition is not the only measure for success that you should be looking out for. An area with lots of nurseries may still be lucrative if the birth rate is high in the area and the area is affluent. I opened one of my nurseries where there was 4 really good nurseries, all within walking distance. However, my location was better as it was on the main road, so even though I was new, I still managed to attract lots of parents. Similarly, you can't rely on the number of nurseries, as an area with few nurseries may not be as an attractive prospect if the people in the area do not have the income for childcare or do not need childcare. So you really need to look into the specifics of your area to see whether it's the right location for you. You can see whether the nursery you're looking to purchase has a long waiting list or whether they're struggling to get parents in. So with a strong marketing effort, you could determine through your research whether the area will still be successful despite the current nursery potentially not attracting enough clientele. In addition to these considerations, with regards to location, you should also think about what's in the local area. Is the nursery easiest to get to by either walking, public transport or driving? Is there parking available, not only for parents but for staff too? And what amenities are in the area? Are there local parks there? Is there a school? Are there libraries? These are all things that you should consider when purchasing a nursery. Once you've made decisions of where you might want your nursery to be, you can then search for nurseries for sale. The internet has made it a lot easier to find potential nurseries for sale. So actually finding a nursery for sale shouldn't be too difficult, as there are many websites that advertise them, including daynurseries.co.uk and christie.com. The difficulty will come when trying to attempt to find a property at a really good price. Another issue you might find is that many of the listings show very limited information, requiring you to contact them first. When searching for properties, some key things that you should be looking at are the size of the nursery. So how many children, how many staff do they have? Is there potentially room for expansion? Are you purchasing a nursery as a freehold or a leasehold? This is very important, as a freehold is a much more attractive proposition. You are more likely to be successful in any loan applications if you are purchasing a freehold, and it adds more security for your nursery. A freehold basically means that you'll be owning the building as well. Nurseries with a freehold are usually quicker to purchase too, as a leasehold can delay things. This is because you may need to agree with the current landlord about whether they want you to take over the nursery. They may want to do background checks on you to ensure that you are reliable in upkeeping the rent. You'll also want to find out the reputation of the nursery you're buying, whether parents like them, what concerns people have, and whether they have a positive Ofsted rating. As although the Ofsted rating will be changed when you take over the nursery, the reputation of the nursery will still be known in the community, So if it has a really negative reputation, it may be hard to wash that. You also want to know the financial history of the business. You want to know if the nursery is making a good income at the moment, whether they're sold out, how much they pay staff, and all the costs involved with running the business. If they're already making a good profit, it will make it much easier for you to take over and run it. You also want to know the staff information, the number of staff they have, and what sort of contracts they're on. You want to know the commercial lease agreement for the nursery premises, the health and safety and risk management they have in place. So this will mean looking at their risk assessments and things like that. This will let you know if there are any problems with the building that you need to be aware of. You also want to look at any existing contracts that they have with suppliers, as well as the contracts that they currently have with all the parents. And finally, you want to know whether there's any live or potential legal disputes against the nursery. If this information isn't on the listing, you should be able to ask the seller's agent who will provide this information for you. But it's important that you find out this information to help reduce the risk of you purchasing a nursery. There are 3 key things that you need to consider when purchasing a nursery that many people overlook. Firstly, staff contracts. When purchasing a nursery, you'll have to negotiate with the seller and their existing staff in order to comply with the TUPE laws. The Transfer of Undertakings Protection of Employment Regulations, i.e. TUPE, protects existing employees under the transfer of ownership, which means you will have to take on the existing employees under their existing contracts. This can make it difficult if you want to bring in your own staff and make changes to the current team, or even if you want to change working patterns of the current staff or employment wages. So it's important to look into the current staff contracts and see if it aligns with what you want to do. The second key thing that you want to look into is the Ofsted registration. When a nursery changes hands or a new business is set up, the new owner must go through a new registration process. Applicants for registration must be 18 years or over and have the right to work within the UK. Registration for Ofsted can be made by an individual or an organisation. Sounds straightforward enough, but what you might not appreciate is that the registration process is incredibly thorough. It can take up to 26 weeks to complete. What's more is that until the registration takes place, your new business will not be able to operate. So even though you purchase a nursery, you won't be able to operate the nursery under your name until Ofsted register you. This means you will need to negotiate with the seller for them to continue their Ofsted registration up until you are officially registered. This means that although you are running the nursery, they are still responsible with regards to Ofsted. This is a big risk they're taking and creates a lot of legal complications, as you could do something wrong in that period, but Ofsted will take it as their responsibility. So if this doesn't take place and they don't maintain an Ofsted registration, you won't be able to operate until you get that registration approved. So as part of your negotiations, you should request a provision in a sale of purchase agreement that the seller agrees to maintain their Ofsted registration after the completion date up until you officially get registered with Ofsted and your Ofsted registration is confirmed. In these circumstances, it is normal to agree and include the following provisions into the contract. Firstly, that the seller continues to provide some form of consultancy to the new business in order to help with the transition of ownership. This can be as little as like a phone call a week. This really helps with the transition, as you won't know exactly how things are run and it'll be impossible for them to tell you everything before passing on the business to you. And it could just be little things like where do you keep a specific policy, or why do you have this thing in place? With regards to transfer of ownership, in order to reduce the risk to the seller, you as the buyer should provide some form of indemnity to the seller that should Ofsted make any form of claim against the seller with regards to the Ofsted registration, that you will reimburse the seller for any amount of claim and any of the associated costs. Such a claim, for example, may occur if you failed to make sure that you had an adequate amount of staff that had a suitable DBS check to look after children during the transition period. Also, as I mentioned, with a new registration, you are a new nursery under Ofsted, so any previous Ofsted ratings are no longer attributed to you. The final thing that you need to consider that many people overlook is the type of sale. Will you be doing a share purchase or an asset purchase? A share purchase means you'll be purchasing the whole business, including its liabilities, whether you are aware of the liabilities or not. This could mean that you could be taking on any of the debts that the company are responsible for, or even any legal disputes that are against the company. With an asset purchase, you are just agreeing to be responsible for the assets that you negotiate during the contract. A share purchase is quicker and easier to do and is preferred by the seller, but it is also riskier. This is why it's important to find out whether there are any debts or any negative things that could potentially affect your future business. As you can probably tell from the video, purchasing an existing nursery can be quite complex and costly. The time frame for completing the acquisition once you've decided on a nursery can be anywhere from 3 to 6 months, though with more complicated acquisitions, this can be longer. So things like a leasehold or a share purchase might extend this date. This is roughly the same amount of time it takes to register a nursery and start a nursery from scratch. So with this in mind, you need to make sure that you can allocate appropriate resources to the process. You don't want to be running out of money whilst doing this. From my own perspective, I've always found it easier and cheaper to just start a nursery from scratch. It takes roughly the same amount of time, it's much cheaper, you have much more control, and it really gives you the freedom to create the nursery that you have in mind. If this is something that you've thought about doing, then let me support you. Check out the video that's on the screen now where you can learn more about the process and find out how you can open a nursery in just 7 steps. So regardless of whether you want to purchase an existing nursery or you want to open a nursery from scratch, you can get a lot of support on the website opennursery.co.uk. So check it out now and good luck. God bless.